Okay, so in the last video, we just covered how buttons work. Now we want to make it look pretty. So right now you can see everything is kinda on top of each other. And that's not great, it's not ideal. What if you want the sprint button right there? Well, well, not a couple, but there's one way you can do this. First of all, we're going to make a new file, and you can do this inside Visual Studio. So if we go here to Explorer, right on your left hand side, and you click this button, which is just new file, and we can just name this, how about we go with grid.py. Grid is the packing system that we'll be using, so it's just named grid. And here we just want to make sure that we import Takinta as tk, of course, and um, we can kind of just initialize tk as normal. So I'm going to start tk. Right, so win equals tk.tk hello. Okay, why hasn't that recognized? Oh, right, make sure that's not there, because that's going to mess things up if it is, because that is a different Takinta. Right, so we have our thing right there, and then we can start the main loop. So we can tell Takinta, hey, main loop me please, and boom. Now we have our little blank widget, or not widget, um, kind of our first layer. And this is when the layers really start to make sense. So before we were working on this one layer and we couldn't stack or do anything in this one layer, right? Well, now we can. So using grid instead of pack. So we can see here that we use pack, dot pack, dot pack, dot pack, dot pack, and this just tells Takinta to put the thing that we are talking about onto the screen. And now we're going to use a different method. Now it's called dot grid. So first of all, we need something to put on this. So why don't we set up a little sign-in page, if you will. So first of all, we're going to need to initialize or define a lot of things. First of all, it's going to be label underscore name, and that can be equal to Takinta name, oh sorry, label, and we can have the text say type your name here, and then we can just hit enter and type in entry underscore name and equal that to tk.entry, have the text on that. The alright, so no text for entry, but we gotta remember where we want to put these. So for right now, we're going to put it in win. And so right, so we haven't printed any of these yet. So now we're going to create the frame. So we want to set um, uh, what can we call this? So let's call this the name section, if you will. And then we just want to set that to label frame. So you'll see label frame right there. It does have a capital F if you are not, if you, so that needs to be paid attention to. And this we can say put it in win. And we can do all sorts of things to it. We're not going to really mess around with any of that. If you really do want to, you can say name and then name section. And this is just going to print it out on the on the outline, you'll see later what I'm talking about. And here we want to put in name section. So instead of win, we're going to place it in name section. So now, if we were to start all this, and for now we can use pack since it's nice and simple and easy. So label name dot pack and entry name dot pack. Beautiful. Window name starts with right. So no uppercases to start window names. Okay, no uppercases at all in window names. I did not know this was a. Oh no. Do we. Oh no. Um. Right, so window name. Okay, so you can have capitals here and here. It's the window name that can't. So instead, just set this to text. I believe should be the correct one. Window name here. So yeah. Um, right. So now, along with this, we do need to actually pack this, believe it or not. So let's just do name section dot pack, and if we do that, boom. So now we can see all of this here, and it's wrapped up in this nice little box with window name, and type your name here. You can say Ethan. Of course, there's nothing that we're doing with this right now, but it is nice and neat and organized. So now we can work with grids. So I'm going to set this to grid. I'm going to set all of this to grid. No more pack, but you just to show what it's all about. And you can just use grid like you'd use pack, where there's just nothing in there. And as you can see, it's no longer in the middle, it's now off to the left hand top side. So that's something to remember. And so now we want to remember something, and this can be kind of hard to show since indenting is something that can mess up the how Python understands your code. So you can't really indent things. So this can become kind of difficult to understand and conceptualize, but imagine that this is containing this and this. So this and this is inside name section. So anything you do to name section affects this and this. Kind of simple, right? So I'm going to say, so this is how grid works. It's in the name basically, but if you can imagine, right? Let me just make it this a visual. So there's a couple ways we can imagine this. One is that there's a bunch of lines all across the screen. I know my handwriting, my pen skills are truly amazing on mouse and keyboard. And right over here is 0, 0, and this is 1, and this is 2, and this is 3. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it all starts from 0, right? Everything starts there from 0. So 0, 0, this is at 0, 0. So similar to a grid, like as the name implies. So say we wanted to make this go here. Well, then we'd make that 2. And we can do this by placing here in rows. In row, we can set that to 0. So row is our vertical, and column is our horizontal. And now you shouldn't see any change because we haven't changed the column. One thing though is that technically none of these extra columns exist unless there's a widget in those columns. So right now if I were to say to column 6, it would not move because there's nothing in column 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, right? So there's nothing there, so there's nowhere for it to move. So it just remains at what would be column 0. So that's it. It's a little bit finicky in that, but there's ways around it. And now that we have this, now we can set this up. Now, if you can imagine, if we go back to that little grid that I made, imagine this little outlined here is its own grid. So this and this is a part of its own grid, and this entire thing as a total is part of its own grid. And to demonstrate that, we can set up two columns. So say I want right here, I want to type your name right besides, I want this on the left side of that, right? Nice and simple, nice and easy. So what would we do? So we'd set the row to 0 first of all, because we want them on the same vertical row. We don't want the vertical to change. So now that they're on the same, if you run this, they'll be meshed inside of one another. But you won't be able to see one because one's below the other. But it doesn't matter. Now we set the column. So this column is going to be 0, aka 1, and column 2 over here is going to be 1. And now you'll see that they are next to each other. Nice and pretty. Awesome. Exactly what we wanted, right? And that shows you how to use grids. Now say if I were to copy and paste this, and we can just do not birthday, email. So email, and then we can do email, and do email, type your email here, and then instead of name section up here, we just type in, well, we can basically copy paste that and do email. And a lot of this can be copy pasted, can quite literally be copy pasted, I think, right there. And email, 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 beautiful. Right, caps. So now if we run that, you can see that, well, this is now email, so something's been gone wrong, and that is obviously the case. So right now, let's just add one right there. So now window name, where you can type your name, and where you can type your email, are next to each other, because this one is in column 0 and this one's in column 1. So now they're next to each other, right? Awesome. But say I want this to be on the same column, but I want them to be below each other, right? Sorry, let me. Right, so I want them to be on the same column, but I want them to be below each other. So then I just add one to row. Wonderful. So now that they are below each other, that's exactly what we wanted. That's exactly what we got. So this can be a little bit hard to conceptualize at first, but just know that with good organization, it can make sense eventually. And now we are one step further in our process of making a calculator in Tkinter.